What's up, everybody? Anthony here, 6 Scale Mafia. I'm joined with my buddy Harry here, my friend, and we got something special for you guys. Hopefully, coming up here soon. We are working on a 10-part series on toy photography. And Harry, this is something you and I have been talking about for a while, right?
Oh yeah, we've been working on this for a good minute now. I feel like it's something that it's really nice to kind of get back to the community. I know a lot of people have been trying to get into toy photography, and it could be pretty daunting at first. It's a whole process, right? So I think it's a great thing for us to just sit down and go through the entire process from beginning to end, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, beginning to end. I mean, so this should be a 10-part series, probably 10 parts.
Yeah, I'm thinking 10-part. It's gonna be quite a lot to talk about, and we want to go actually in depth into each part. We don't want to just skim through. We want to actually explain each and everything, really in detail.
Well, yeah, in detail, of course, right? I mean,
Yeah.
whether or not it's, what I think what our first part is, obviously, we're going to talk about what kind of gear that you might want to pick up or what gear you may already have. I know a lot of people may not be able to afford gear, as cameras, things like that. But, we can also talk about how you can deal with doing some photos with your phone as well.
Yeah, we'll bring up a few cameras that we think is a great way to start. But obviously, if you don't have access to that, then yes, your phone is also a great tool. You'll find out later on, but lighting is really the key to getting really good looking photos. You really don't need the best camera possible on the market. But obviously, if you have it, it will help.
Oh, of course. But you're absolutely right. Lighting is key. Lighting is everything. Photography is essentially painting with light, essentially.
Yep. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, for those of you who follow me, do know not only do I live stream and do reviews, I also do photography. Harry as well. We're both heavily into it. I've been doing photography for, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years now. I've been working kind of professionally with a couple of, toy companies as well, like 𝗣𝗘𝗥𝗖𝗛. I'm doing a lot of stuff on my own, just freelance or, just for the hobby and stuff. Right. So, we have some of that. I think we all have our own kind of style, I would say. But, you all kind of develop your own style over time, I think, is really what's key. And, as far as with you, Harry, I mean, you also have a very unique style as well. Well, and you really try to really make it look like it's coming right out of a movie,
Right.
That's the name. I mean, that's a very unique style, and I mean, a lot of people often they often think that it's just a screenshot sometimes, right, of like a TV show or a movie.
It's both a curse and a blessing. There are times when people are like, "Hey, man, what the hell? Why posting screenshots? What are you doing? Stop stealing people's work." And I'm like, "That's a compliment. That's a compliment to me." So
I've seen it happen. I've seen people think that you were just ripping a scene out of a TV show or
Yep.
Somewhere like, oh, are those leaked episodes? I haven't seen.
I was gonna say sometimes they'd be like, "Ooh, I got leaked footage."
Like we mentioned, we have a 10-part series here that we're going to start covering here, with the first part being your camera gear essentials. Basically, what you need to do your photography, what kind of camera you want, maybe what kind of lighting, tripods, things of that nature. We're going to cover that in the first episode. And I think in the second episode, Harry, what we're going to do?
Yeah, we're gonna be trying to understand the exposure triangle, which is the ISO, shutter speed, and aperture, the 3 things that you're gonna be messing with the most to get the correct exposure and to get the correct lighting in your shots.
Yeah, absolutely. And because we need to do that, you need to understand that first, right? And if some of you already understand that, then that's fine. But for a lot of beginners, may be like, what the hell are you guys talking about, right? And then once we understand that exposure triangle, then we're going to get into lighting techniques, right? So you can understand what the difference is between 1, 2, or 3 kind of point lighting system, things of that nature, to kind of give you that dynamic or dramatic effect, essentially, right? Understanding kind of how to light your shot.
Yeah, and we'll talk about more, just how, what the differences are between, let's say, product shots, which is completely different than something that's cinematic, right? Like, why would you choose to have less fill, more rim light, less rim light, more key and less key, So after you know how to light your scene, obviously you're going to have to learn how to set up the scene, right? So we're going to be talking about, what kind of posing that you should pick to tell a story, and what kind of composition which you want to have, right? Like, there's so many different rules when it comes to composition, the golden rule, the third rule, so many things, right? We're going to talk about all of that and why you want to pick one over the other. And it depends on what kind of story you want to tell.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, because that's really what a lot of, photography is, at least in toy photography, is storytelling, right? Through photography, right? You got to learn how to tell those stories with your images, changing, something that looks kind of basic into something more dynamic, right? You're literally trying to tell a story with your figures. Afterward, we're also going to go ahead and talk about post-processing, which is basically going into either Lightroom or Photoshop. If you're using a phone, we're going to try to give you covered on that. And if you're using, actual camera, mirrorless or DSLR, it's going to give you a little bit more freedom, obviously, in control of your photos. But we're going to try to cover how you can go ahead and get your stuff set up, color grading, things like that in post-processing as well in its own episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just point and shoot and you're done, right? Like post-processing is such an essential part of photography, right? Like that's where you have the most control over your mood, over your colors. And that's my favorite part, which is going to be a fun episode because I'm going to talk really in depth about how I achieve the cinematic look in my
right.
photos.
Well, and that's the thing, because a lot of people don't necessarily understand. They think if you're getting to post, it's that there's some types of like hacks or secrets or cheats and realistically, it's really about understanding why you do go in post. And we're going to break that down as that when you're shooting in RAW, you're getting all the information that the camera is recording, and the cameras doesn't always know exactly what the right color is or what the right tone is or the shadows or your whites or your highlights. So you need to go in and manually adjust those things, right? And if you don't know how, you can just experiment by moving things around and see what fits and kind of develop a style. But we're going to try to break down, what these mean and what this represents, so you can understand, how to proceed in a more calculated way, basically.
So in post, not only do you have control over your colors and your lights to tell your story, but you can also have really, really advanced techniques that not a whole lot of people know of. We're talking about focus stacking. We're talking about light stacking, which are things that are pretty, foreign to a lot of people. So we really want to talk about how to approach that. That's something that I do a lot. Not so much focus stacking, but more light stacking. And I know it sounds pretty weird and makes no sense, but I feel like once we get into it, it will make a lot of sense when I show you guys.
Well, we also want to kind of break down, such the differences of, understanding the concepts. And this is still through understanding the exposure triangle. But once you understand that, there's more kind of complex concepts, right? Like working with depth of field, understanding like if you want to have more of a shallow background, if that's what you're going for, or what's the difference between a normal lens and a macro lens, right? Because a lot of us, we're doing this for toy photography, whether it's 6 scale or 12 scale, what is a macro lens, exactly, and what are the benefits of that, and how can you be creative, doing these things with different styles of lenses. And that's something that we're also going to have to want to discuss with everybody as well.
The whole point of this series, right, is to provide knowledge to you guys and also to inspire and give you practical advice that you would need to really master the art of not only 6 scale photography, but honestly on all scale. You can do this with 112, you can do this with 118, you can do this with even 1:1 scale. Basically all the knowledge here you should be able to apply with everything else that you do.
Yeah, so our hopes here in doing this series is to go ahead and pretty much educate and kind of help people, like Harry was saying, kind of inspire people, show people. I know there's a lot of budding photographers out there that ask questions, that hit us up, that want to know, or just maybe you're stumbling upon it for your first time, or you just started collecting and you kind of want to explore that world of photography. So we want to try to cover as much as we can, to provide as much information as possible, and making it fun as well for everybody, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. I mean, we started doing these for fun. It's not like we just went and applied somewhere and had no knowledge prior. Like we all started somewhere, right? I mean, I started doing stuff on my phone, and then you just kind of, so it just depends, right? So whether you haven't started, you're just starting, or you've been doing this for quite a while, our hopes are that you're going to be able to kind of walk away with some kind of newfound knowledge that you can apply to your photography.
Right. I think, we all kind of start out, at the same exact spot, right? Like I started out with just my phone too, taking really, really crappy photos. And it took me a while to really found my style, to really understand all like the technical aspects of photography. And the goal is basically to kind of shorten that time span so you guys don't have to take 2 years, 3 years to get to where we are now. Maybe a month, maybe 2 months, and that's the ultimate goal. And like Anthony said, have fun. That's the entire purpose of this hobby. Whether it's collecting, whether it's photography, you should have fun. If you're not having fun, then you're not doing it correctly.
No, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's the other thing that I kind of wanted to point out too, is that we didn't really have help, and that's one of the main objectives of why we want to do this. Because I mean, if you search around on forums or on YouTube channels, there's not a whole lot. There's some toy photography, yes, smaller scales, things of that nature, but not a whole lot that really kind of breaks it down, hopefully in like a comprehensive series that, I wish we had stuff like that, basically, like when we started.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, guys, gather your gear, select your favorite figures, and get ready to embark on this thrilling adventure with us. Let's go.